I just want to welcome everyone to our April Flash Talk in His Majesty's Secret Service. We are joined by Sergio Alivernini from the Oriental Institute of the Czech Academy of Sciences. Um, and his presentation, Espionage in Ancient Mesopotamia, how did intelligent networks operate nearly 4,000 years ago? Ancient cuneiform sources reveal a sophisticated world of spies, informants, and secret communications. We're so excited that Assyriologist Sergio Alivernini will offer insights into the politics, intrigue, and intelligence practices documented in tablets from the Mesopotamian Kingdom of Mari. Thank you so much for being with us. We're so excited to partner with you on this flash talk today. I will turn it over to you to start your presentation.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for inviting me. It's a great occasion. I'm very happy about that. Thank you very much to the audience altogether for being here. And I think we can start. So, uh, the importance of maintaining an efficient intelligence service is a cornerstone of modern statecraft, yet this necessity is far from a contemporary innovation. As we examine the historical record, we find that sophisticated intelligence apparatuses were already operational in ancient Rome and also ancient Greece. Even in the Far East, the strategic value of information was so highly regarded that Sun Tzu, the author of the famous Art of War, dedicated an entire chapter of his book. So we are talking about more or less the 5th century before the Christian era. And he noticed that for knowledge cannot be elicited from spirits or deductive calculation, but must be obtained from men who know the enemy's disposition. However, the true cradle of organized intelligence lies in the Near East. Evidence from Ebla, from the city of Ebla in Syria, and from the third dynasty of Ur in Mesopotamia, suggests that systems for gathering information on enemies were already in place in the third millennium before Christian era. Intelligence services were also active in New Kingdom Egypt and in the Hittite Empire in Anatolia. So we are moving to the second millennium, actually. The Old Babylonian period, which spanned more or less from the fall of Ur III dynasty, so the end of third millennium, till the collapse of the first dynasty of Babylon. The most famous king of the first dynasty of Babylon is Hammurabi, the author of the Law Code, so to say. More or less, we are talking about the mid of the second millennium. Is particularly rich in textual documentation that allows us to reconstruct aspects of early intelligence practices. In this context, intelligence activities played a crucial role in maintaining state stability during a period marked by political fragmentation and frequent inter-polity conflict. As you can see, basically the actor in the Near East were very big kingdom, so to say. So we have Babylonia, Assyria, Mitanni Kingdom, Hittite Empire, Mari, and also several smaller kingdom in the region, in the Levant region, and also Egypt. A particularly important source for this reconstruction is the archive of the ancient city-state of Mari, which is located on the Middle Euphrates. Excavation at the site have uncovered an exceptionally large royal archive of roughly 25,000 cuneiform tablets, more or less, most of which date to the 18th century. And to the reign of the king Zimri-Lim. These texts include administrative records and, crucially for us, diplomatic and royal letters that document the flow of intelligence between the palace and its officials across the kingdom and also beyond. A quantity of documentation that suggests either exceptional bureaucracy or exceptional anxiety, I would say. So let's start with defining basically what is intelligence. Mark Lowenthal, in his famous book about intelligence, started the book explaining that virtually every book written on the subject of intelligence begins with a discussion of what intelligence means, or at least how the author intends to use the term. This editorial fact tells us much about the field of intelligence. In keeping with this almost ritualistic tradition, I would say, one might say unavoidable at this point, it seems only appropriate to begin once again with a definition. We can define an intelligence service as carrying out all those activities related to the collection, analysis, and exploitation of information on threats, dangers, and opportunities useful to support political authority and protect the interest of a country. These activities have the ultimate goal of protecting the security of the state. There are several activities linked to intelligence, but can be grouped into three main steps, so to say. The collection of information, the analysis of the collected information, and the implementation of a response based on the analysis of the collected information. Each of these steps involves different professional figures, and a spy is only one of the many professional figures involved. Espionage, which is often considered a synonym of intelligence, is actually only one of its activities. More precisely, espionage is the process of obtaining military, political, commercial, or other secret information by means of spies, secret agents, or illegal monitoring device. This is more modern, of course. In a nutshell, espionage is a tool, while intelligence is a general system. When we approach the study of the terminology used in the city-state of Mari, in the Kingdom of Mari, as you prefer, to define who collected information, so what we define spy, problems are generated not only by words in the original language, it's a problem, but also by the translation of the ancient terminology into modern languages. This is a general problem, especially if you study ancient Near East material. Even today, different words are used to define people who collect information for the authorities, and these words often overlap in meaning. This applies, for example, to terms like spy, informer, secret agent, undercover agent, mole, and so on, which are often used interchangeably. If one looks at the documentation in Mari, there are three types of people from whom the Kingdom of Mari obtain information. First, personnel who were sent with the specific goal of collecting information on enemies. People in foreign cities and courts whose activities could make them aware of important information. Then capture enemies and people who, despite coming from hostile areas, decided to pass information to Mari. So let's start with the first group of people. In the correspondence of King Zimri-Lim, two Akkadian terms, Makum and Natsirum or Natsrum, appear in contexts that have often led scholars to associate them, at least tentatively, with what we might call spies. However, a closer reading of the textual evidence suggests that their functions were more complex and less institutionally defined than the modern label spy would imply. The term Makum is particularly well attested in operational and military context. We have, for example, a letter in which Yakim Addu, who is a governor of Sagaradum, a city that was under the control of Mari, reports to the king, to Zimri-Lim, that Yaminites were planning an attack on some Mari-controlled territories. And in order to obtain more precise information about the situation on the ground, they dispatched what they defined Makums, who subsequently reported that the area was already in a state of alert. In this case, the Makum appeared as a mobile agent for reconnaissance, involved in gathering tactical information on troop movements and the preparedness of enemy force, what nowadays is called scouts, so to say. A similar usage is documented, for example, in this letter. Yasimel, who is a representative of Mari in the city of Andarig, informed the king that Ishmedagan, who is the king of the city of Isin, has sent Macus in preparation for an attack on Sukhum, another city. Here again, their role is clearly connected to pre-battle control of the territory, kind of operational assessment. They do not appear to operate clandestinely behind enemy lines in the modern cinematic sense of espionage. Rather than function is closer to that of scout, exactly, tasked with evaluating battlefield condition, enemy positioning, and the feasibility of a military action. The second term that I cited before is Natsrum, or its variant Natsirum, is usually translated in the modern dictionary as guard, just guard. However, Jean-Marie Duran, for example, has argued that both Natsirum or Natsrum may, in certain contexts, be translated as spy, although this interpretation is not reflected in the standard dictionaries. The ambiguity of the term is evident, for example, in a text, in a letter. In this letter, Sumuadu, who is the officials of Zimrilim, praises Zimrilim for his strategic plan against the Sutians, but explicitly warns him not to speak openly about it, for fear that a Natsirum, what is defined Natsirum, in Mari, might discover the plan. In this context, the Natsirum appears not merely as a passive guard, but as someone capable of intercepting or uncovering sensitive political information within the city itself. So basically, taken together, the evidence indicates that neither Macum or Natsirum can be straightforwardly equated with spies in the modern sense. Both groups were multifunctional actors embedded within the military and administrative structures of the kingdom. Beyond the formal agents, such as scouts or palace officials, the intelligence system of Mari also relied heavily on what we might call occasional spies. Individuals whose primary identity lay outside intelligence work, but who nevertheless provided valuable information as a consequence of their social position, mobility, or political circumstances. A first group, for example, is represented by merchants, traveling artisans, sailors, and other non-combatants, non-fighters, whose constant mobility gave them access to a wide range of geographical, political, and military information. As Jack Sasson has already noted, for example, the court of Mari regularly received intelligence from such individuals whose ubiquity, so to say, allowed them to move across territories without belonging directly to the military apparatus. When officials of Zimrilim refer to information obtained from voices, sometimes they use secret sources, sometimes they use the expression people around me, are very likely alluding to this diffuse network of informal informants, so to say. This is an example. I also heard around me, I only heard it circulating around me, and so on. Alongside these itinerant actors, and even more politically significant category, is that of diplomats and court officials stationed in foreign kingdoms. I would say, like in Mari also nowadays, is more or less, is basically the same. These individuals could function as embedded observers, or in modern terms, moles, within allied or rival courts. An example is provided by a letter where the Mari's ambassador in Babylon, the name is Yarimabdu, reports to Zimrilim on the activities of Hammurabi at the Babylonian court. There is a list of activities, so he said Hammurabi did this, and that, he talked with him, and blah, blah, blah. Far from being passive messengers, anyway, such officials could actively collect intelligence and even develop their own information networks. There is a letter that illustrates this aspect. Sharum Tsululi, who is a military commander stationed in Babylon, reports that he has successfully corrupted two courtiers of Hammurabi in order to obtain information about developments at the Babylonian court. As you can see, I use the term to win over, but I think that the more correct is to bribe, I think, in English. Anyway. And so basically, in this case, intelligence gathering is not only embedded in diplomatic presence, but also extend to active recruitment and manipulation of local actors. At the same time, these envoys were fully recognized as a potential intelligence threat. So the kings knew that they could create some problem. And for example, we have a letter, this. Bakti Lim, who is an official of Zimri Lim, writes to the king telling that he has detained a messenger from Katna, a city in Syria, and has not forwarded him to the king in order to prevent him from observing the actual condition of Mari's army. The act of restricting diplomatic movement itself thus becomes a form of what is called nowadays counterintelligence. A second major category of occasional informers is represented by enemy informers, fugitives, and defectors, commonly referred to as shalishanim, literally one of the tongue in our text. The evidence suggests that this category was not homogeneous. It includes voluntary informants, often fugitives or deserters, as well as captured individuals forced to provide information. In both cases, these individuals constituted a crucial source of intelligence on enemy movement and plans. Textual evidence frequently highlights the importance of such informers. There is a text, for example, where Meptun, who is a high official of Zimri Lim, rejoices the informer and fugitives are constantly arriving, indicating their steady flow into Mari's intelligence network. Fugitive and informers continue to come to me without chasing. Also, captured informers play a significant role. We have a letter. This letter reports the arrest of two Elamite informers. Elam is in Syria, in Iran. Sorry, is in Iran. In some cases, the capture of informers appears to have become a substitute objective of military operation, as illustrated by another letter. This one. After the ambush failed for the rather inconvenient reason that there was no bridge, Hammurabi promptly redirects the mission toward a more achievable target, sending troops out not to win the battle, but at least to bring back some informers. States did not merely use spies. They actively sought to neutralize those of their enemies. And we have letters for this. For example, this. This letter demonstrates concern over infiltration and information leaks. And so basically, as you can see, there is an official of Zimri telling, pay attention because I know from a guy under the influence of alcohol that there was a person at your court, in your circle, that passed information to Elam, to the kingdom of Elam. There is also another text, for example, this one shows the king, Zimri Lim, issuing direct surveillance orders against suspected individuals. According to all the instruction that our Lord sent us, we are keeping watch over this man. There will be no negligence in supervising him. There is no name of the guy in the letter, so we don't know who is this man or for which reason is watched. Overall, the evidence suggests a fluid intelligence ecosystem in which information was continuously produced, transmitted, and intercepted through a wide range of actors. Rather than a clearly define institutional service, like nowadays we have MI6 in UK, CIA in US, Mossad in Israel, and others. Um, Mari's intelligence system emerges a dynamic network in which diplomacy, mobility, warfare, and opportunistic human behavior all contributed to the collection and control of strategic information. A full understanding of the intelligence system of Mari requires attention not only to the collection of information, but also to its transmission to the king, its interpretation, and the implementation of responses, which is the most important thing in the system of intelligence. The evidence clearly shows that this latter stage were highly centralized, with Zimri-Lim occupying, actually, the key position as ultimate recipient and decision maker. Almost all the correspondence demonstrate the constant effort of officials to keep the king informed about the intelligence gathered from spies, informers, and other sources. In many cases, even operational decisions, such as the capture of informers, for example, were executed directly under royal instruction. We have, for example, this letter. In this letter, two officials of Zimri-Lim, Bukakum and Kipsiaddu, report to Zimri-Lim that they have successfully carried out his orders to capture enemy informers. This illustrates the extent to which intelligence activities was not only reported to the king, but also directly orchestrated by him. In other cases, rather than reporting information in writing, officials sent directly, physically, the captured informers themselves, directly to the king. This allowed for first-hand interrogation and evaluation. We have, for example, this letter, where two officials, Askudum and Ajmad, report that they are sending to Zimri-Lim an informer captured as Shidulum. This is basically a rather direct solution to the perennial problem of summarizing complex information. Such practices indicate that the king was not only the final recipient of information, but also at times an active participant in its verification. Despite the strong centralization, the system also allowed for a degree of operational autonomy at the local level. Certain officials could decide independently how to react an incoming intelligence, especially in situations requiring immediate action, or reaction. This is illustrated, for example, from this letter. Uziri, who is another official of Zimri-Lim, informed the king that after receiving intelligence from a spy regarding an imminent attack on Ayasumu, an allied, he chose to mobilize troops in order to support the ally and counter the threat. Such cases suggest that intelligence was often operational in nature, requiring rapid decision that could not await royal authorization. So if the concept is that if we have time, okay, let the king know. If we don't have time, let's take the responsibility of a reaction. This immediacy also helps explain the broader communication structure. Most letters were addressed directly to Zimri-Lim, yet the king was frequently absent from the city of Mari. This raises the question of how officials ensured the delivery of sensitive correspondence. While it is likely that they were informed of the king's movements, in many cases, letters were probably sent directly to the palace in Mari, where trusted administrators managed incoming intelligence. Also, the queen, the wife of Zimri-Lim, the name is Shibtu, may also have been involved in this network, because we have a letter where a very important official at the Palace of Mari, administrator in the Palace of Mari, this letter basically suggests the participation of the queen in intelligence-related matters. As Meptum, this administrator, informs her about the capture of informers and reports on enemy troop movements, indicating that she had access to sensitive information channels. Then, of course, if one were to evaluate the success of an intelligence service solely in terms of the survival of the state, one might be tempted to give Zimri-Lim rather a disappointing assessment. In a particularly striking twist of historical irony, Mari was ultimately besieged and destroyed by Hammurabi of Babylon. The very brother and ally of Mari was carefully observed, reported on, and at times infiltrated by Mari's own envoys, such as we saw, Yarimadu and Sharum Tsululi. It seems that while Zimri-Lim officials were diligently capturing tongues, intercepting messages, Hammurabi was quietly refining a strategy that no intelligence network appears to have fully anticipated: the gradual transformation of alliance into conquest. In the end, Zimri-Lim may well have had access to a remarkable flow of information, but he still failed to identify the most decisive intelligence of all, the one signal hidden in plain sight, that a trusted ally can also become an existential threat. Or, to put it more bluntly, Mari ears were excellent, but they did not always listen for the sound of the knife being sharpened next door. A final reminder that intelligence is not only about knowing more, but about interpreting correctly what is already known. Thank you very much for listening me, and I open for any question you have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So you can feel free to unmute yourselves and ask your questions, or you can put them in the chat and I'd be happy to read them out. We do have one question already, so I'll go ahead and read that in the chat. So were those places officially at war, or were these occasional ambushes, raids from Mary? Oh no.
Sorry, those places officially as war, or were these occasional? No, actually, I mean, as far as we see, when we talk about ancient Near East, often it's not clear because we have sometimes we don't have a constant flow of information. So sometimes we know something, but we lose a part of the same period. So it's very complicated sometimes, even to understand, for example, if people are in war or in peace. An ambushes, for example, can, of course, one expected that we are in war, but actually sometimes can be organized even if technically there are no wars between two kingdoms, for example. This is something that war were very common, of course. These ambushes raid as well were very common. Sometimes we really don't understand, even because since basically the flow of information we have is not continuous, sometimes we have problem in understanding, for example, if a letter was written before or after another. We don't know exactly who are the people cited in a letter. So it's very difficult to reply to a question like this. I would say that basically war is very common, and within these wars, of course, there were ambushes, raids were very common. But ambushes and raids were also common, especially against not only other kingdom, but in that period in Syria was full basically of these called tribes, semi-nomadic shepherd that lives in Syria. And these were actually the source of many raids in the kingdoms. And so in Mari, for example, we know that there is a clear structure. There is the kingdom of Mari. There are different, are called Bazahatum, kind of military fortress around in the desert, around the city. And from this Bazahatum, Mari started some raids against these tribes. Sometimes to capture informers, sometimes simply to push them far from the kingdom. So I don't know if I reply to your question.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we have another question from Eric Reyes. Was the intelligence service of the Kingdom of Mari exceptional compared to those of its rival kingdoms?
No, I would say no. I said that basically I think that all basically all the kingdoms rely in intelligence services that probably were more or less the same. The fact that Mari looks exceptional is that because it's very well documented by text. This is the issue. This is the reason, basically. I mean, in ancient Near East, often we consider, for example, uh, something very exceptional, but just because we have documentation from a particular city and we don't have any documentation from others, simply because in the Near East, often the situation of the excavation are not very good. Some cities are, well, badly excavated. Some cities were not yet discovered, for example. So it's just basically the documentation give us, of course, the documentation in Mari gave us the point of view of Mari. But so I don't know if it's clear the fact. But actually, for example, as basically you can see, I cited, for example, some, for example, Hammurabi sending rights to take informers. So it means that, for example, also the Kingdom of Babylon rely on this kind of intelligence services. I would say that probably more or less is the same in this period. There could be some modification, for example, in the names of the spy, but I don't think in the general structure.
Great, thank you. It looks like Mary has a follow-up question.
Yeah, they have a special curious secret codes. We don't know actually, but there are references to secret tablets sometimes. So, for example,
Hmm.
there is a letter that said, "I sent to you a secret tablets to Pinitsirtim." I think is in Akkadian, and so there should be something, so to say, because of course, if a secret tablets, what does it mean? Uh, because if it's clearly readable, I mean, it's gonna be strange because it's a normal tablet, it's not a secret one. Or maybe travel in a different way than the normal tablets. We don't know, but there are some reference to this.
Interesting. Um, are there additional questions? Are there any next steps in your research that you're currently investigating?
At the moment, no, I had to stop for familiar reason, basically because I had a daughter recently. So for the moment, I stopped. The idea, of course, is to continue the issue is that the kind of the documentation we have, I'm an expert of third millennium, not the second one. So I'm not really an expert of this period. I did mainly because I like the topic. And in Mari, we have a lot of the documentation that allows us to present in some way. Today, I show just some example, but there are many letters about. I have 20 minutes, so I didn't basically put a lot of example, but there are many, and it's very interesting. My idea is to try to understand what happens in the third millennium, where the kind of the documentation is more complicated actually, because we have less letters, for example, so less things regarding all the day, because the majority of the documents in the third millennium is administrative. So how the system works in the state, so to say. So this kind of the documentation, Mari in this regard is a treasure because you have the correspondence and so you see you can see really the everyday life, so to say, of the elite, of course. But yeah, so let's see. I mean, it's the idea is to try to understand better the third millennium stuff because the first millennium has been very well studied. There is a book on intelligence services in the New Assyrian period. And second millennium, there is something. There is my article, but there are also other stuff because it's full of letters. This is the issue. Third millennium is more complicated, so we'll see if in the near future I will be able to understand better what was the situation.
Wow, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's see, any additional questions? We have thanks coming in from our audience. A thank you from Carol. I just want to say thank you so much for being with us today. This was
Thank you.
incredible. And I'm so thankful for this partnership. Hopefully, maybe we can do it again sometime. That would be
Of
great, a
course.
follow-up. So,
Thank you very much to you, Stephanie, to the museum for inviting me and for all the, again, to all the audience and for the question. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
thank you. Have a great evening.